This is really too much fun. 410 sprint cars at Weed Sport with a wheel that just feels good. Like it just feels like it should. This is the Immsource ET3, an FD1 wheel full review from Racecraft Simulations. Right after this. This is way too much fun. G'day guys, Chris from Racecraft Simulations here now for the full review of the Immsource ET3 wheelbase and their FD1 wheel. I had a great time getting these hooked up onto my rig and going through all the different processes of first getting them installed, getting the positioning correct for my personal rig, then going through the software installation, and finally getting to have a proper drive. I drove them for a couple of weeks on my own rig across multiple different classes of cars for different race distances and different setups before I've come back and I'll give you my final thoughts here at Racecraft Simulations. So, time now to go through the software side of the installation of the Immsource ET3 and FD1 wheel. So it's as simple as opening up your internet browser. I'm on Racecraft Simulations webpage, racecraft.net. You go over to im-source.com, which will take you to their main page. It takes you through, you have all the downloads and openings up for the different product pages. You can go through the ET5 or ET3 base or the FD1 wheel. That's all they have on their website at the time of doing the review. But the one we're after is download. It'll take you over here to download the Imms platform, which you can just hit the download button there. At the same time, you can download various manuals in PDF form for the ET5, the ET3, and the FD1 wheel. Once you've got those downloaded, it's as simple as just opening up the software, and it will take you to the main thing. The first thing it'll go through, and you want to go through, is just make sure you've got these things set up right. Of course, it's got all their contact information. They say everything can be felt. That's neat. You can choose what language you want the software to be in, whether you want it to auto start with Windows or you want to minimize it to the tray, and you go through those processes. There is a little process to getting it hooked up to your system, and that's a matter of just under base here. The first thing that I had to do with mine was go to base, go to miscellaneous, go to wireless. I had to choose what channel I wanted to try and pair to. And then with the wheel connected, I've got the wheel bolted up right now, is you hold the P and the N buttons until it flashes green across the rev lights across the top, and then you click on the hub auto pairing. That was all I needed to do. After that, then the wheel decided to want to connect and communicate to the wheelbase itself, and it's transferring the data wirelessly to the antenna. And then off we go. We're off to the races. So through the basic setup here of the Immsource platform, now I've got the base and the wheel showing up with colored lights here. It says the wheel is blue. Don't know why it says the wheel is blue, but the base is green, the wheel is blue, and I'm not running a game, so it doesn't have any game showing. But a quick look through the basics here. The first one we look at, starting at the base, is we have the system. That tells us our current wheel position. We can get the wheel on center, and if we are happy with it, then we can click center, and it will center out there. We can choose the angle range we want to put in if we want to do reduced angles. I do only iRacing, so I automatically just set mine to 1080, then I set it in-game, and the game has its own soft bumper for how much lock the specific car has of which you're driving. A little button checker, so if I'm pulling the levers here, this will tell me all the buttons that are getting pressed right now. Here it shows up what USB extensions, so at the moment I don't have any USB extensions showing up on here because I don't have any plugged in to the back of my wheelbase. Then it's got your various axes you can set up. If you want to set them up here, you go into FFB. This is probably where you're going to spend the majority of your time. And this shows up the force feedback. So on here, it has a constantly going graph. If you can see, if I whip the wheel around real quick, see, it's just registering a little bit of torque here. The basic settings is you can load an iRacing preset, which will change the various strength things here. So if I go back to that iRacing preset, it has max torque at 10 Newton meters because it's a 10 Newton meter wheelbase for the ET3. The force feedback strength, this took me a little bit of getting used to, but they have a decent enough explainer on the questioning. So if you go to the force strength, it multiplies the strength of the force feedback by a factor. Basically, how much force feedback is amplified out of the game. It's a little different to what you've seen, or what my understanding is at least, coming from Fanatec or the SimMagic Alpha Manager platform, is you don't really set this. You kind of just set your total strength. And here you set your wheel strength, which they say on this description to just leave it at 10. and then you set your total strength based on force feedback strength. But I set it all the way down at 12, which feels weird, but if I crank it up, it's like ridiculous to try and hold on to the wheel. I usually run my Alpha Mini, my SimMagic Alpha Mini at 6.5 or 65%, which you would expect to be 6.5 Newton meters. But this thing, I had to leave it at 12. I tried to drive it 55, 65. It goes all the way up to 100, but it gets ridiculously heavy when you're driving it. So I leave mine around about 12 now, and then the detail enhance. They do say that this is the simplified feature. The detail enhance, through feature extraction of the force feedback curve, the detail part is obtained and enlarged. The recommended value is 3 to 5. I've gone with 5. On smoother tracks, 5 feels right. On some of the bumpier tracks, so it can feel a little jagged, and you might want to think about dropping it down to like 3 on some of the bumpier stuff, especially bumpy tracks with like a stiff car, like an open wheeler, things like that. That's the basic settings, and you can straight away see it here. You go under Simply. That's the simple settings right here. Before we get into that, we'll go to the inherent feature. This has the center spring, so there's a problem there. If you crank the center spring up, it immediately starts throwing the wheel out of your hands. So be careful when doing these kinds of things, because it wants to throw the wheel around, and you can see that on the graph here. It's trying to hammer the force feedback somehow. The inherent damping is just how much damping you have built into the wheel. So I forget where I had that set now. If I reload the iRacing setting, it was at 4. So I had a center spring at 2, which is pretty good. Kind of pulls it back to the center a little bit. Doesn't feel like it's free spinning. And then the end stop strength is just when you get it to the end, how hard the end stop is to actually put you back onto the right path. So that was down at pretty much 0, because you don't need it. When you're doing iRacing, iRacing does the end stop anyway, and so you don't really need it. Back to the general though, because I want to go, and if you click on this Simply button right here, it then changes to advanced, and then you get the advanced adjustments of the force feedback details. So you still have the same maximum torque and force feedback, but now instead of just having the one thing you had here with detail enhance, now you have all these others: speed limit, response, detail enhance, and force filter. So what do they say here? Speed limit, the maximum speed of the motor, which can be used to adjust the return speed. So they say to run at 0 to 10, otherwise it's for drift at 0 to 10, otherwise recommended to be 25 to 50. The standard setting is 25. Response, what do they say for response here? Response, appropriate response can be made the motor torque output as close as possible to the torque signal output by the game. Note that a too high response may introduce unnecessary vibrations. The recommended value is 8. They have the standard setting at 6. It's really good they give you default settings though, which actually feel quite good. Kudos to Immsource for giving us some starting settings that actually feel really good. Detail enhance. If we check out detail enhance through feature instructions, so that's the same thing, and that's what we had there. And then force filter, used to filter out noisy high frequency signals in the force feedback signal. The higher the value, the smoother the force feedback signal, and lower the richness of the details. So it's the same kind of thing as the filtering that we've seen through the SimMagic Alpha Manager software. At the moment, the simple setup leaves that off, but I think you could probably do with turning that up. While you're here as well, when you do run it under advanced mode, you do have the inherent feature again, which then you get extra buttons to be able to press here, and you end up with the inherent friction as well. If I turn up the friction, it doesn't really get that much crazy. Like, I can still crank that all right with just one hand, and it's not really ridiculous. Then you can go over to FFB signal, which this is why this is the advanced feature. Like, really be careful playing with too many of these things unless you're really willing to spend the time and put in the work. I didn't feel like I needed to. If I were to sit with this wheel for a much longer period of time, then I might play, but really I set it up using the simple feature, and I was immediately on track and feeling pretty good. The last stop in the wheelbase segment is the miscellaneous. So it's just a couple of options. You can choose the status LEDs, you can choose the volume and stuff of the buzzers, your wireless signal as we've gone to, and then you can go and check for updates. It's directly connected to the internet, so that's a really cool feature that they have built into in-platform. Go to the wheel settings, and this is where it starts to get really cool. So the first thing here is, if we just start on the front there, is you have all your rotatable buttons. So if I turn the, where are my two rotary encoders? If I turn the left rotary encoder, you can see here, and then the right rotary encoder, and you can you can change them. So if you want it to be a switch, where you can switch different modes, that's all good. If you want it to be plus or minus pulse, that's good. Or if you want it to be like a switch pulsing as well, then you can change how they work. All your various buttons, they come up on the right-hand side here. Under this menu, your two joysticks. So this is the left-hand joystick. This is just the joystick. Now, this is cool. Initially, I tried to set it up in iRacing, and it didn't work because I had it set up like a fully floating axis, which for some reason only the X-axis works. But if you set it as a button, then you just get four-way movement. It's not then proportional, it's just a switch, but it works. The same here for the 7-way. If I push the center, that shows up as button 30. Then I get the 4 other directions, and then the rotary encoder component allows me to do that. My gear paddles, and then I can have my left and right clutch on the back of the wheel. They all do pretty good here. If I move over to the button segment right here, it's just the same. It's literally exactly the same. I don't understand why they have some of those. The bite point setting is something that I wish all the wheel manufacturers would do. Having it easily set in this with your wheelbase here to be able to just set things up, it's so easy and something that really everyone should do. They've given you 5 preset profiles. All you're going to do is set the bite point to where you want it for the specific profile you want to run. So if you want to run an F1 car, you want to run a TCR car, you want to run a GT4, say you want to run an F3 and a Porsche Cup, for example, you can set a different bite point for every car. And just before you're about to load into the grid, you can just open up in-platform, go, that's the one I'm running right now, minimize it, and away you go. That's how easy it is. And it really is something that should be done for all these wheel management platforms, because it is so easy to use, and I'm really a big fan of this. Very, very cool to have, and as you can see here, it's bang on the number. Really fine adjustment as well. You're able to scroll that slider up or down to exactly where you need it to be and get the exact clutch point that you want to be able to launch the car. So I have mine set at 364 or 36.5% of the total clutch usage, allowing me to launch the car off the line. And that's with the TCR car sitting on that 4,500 launch RPM. I just let go of one paddle, drag it for half a second, let go of the second paddle, and I'm already making up, I'll always make up 2 or 3 spots from that starting grid. It's just that easy. So something definitely is a massive plus with this platform and Immsource's ecosystem is this bite point, and you can see here it tells you all about how to do it. So first press the left or right clutch paddle, then press the other side at the time the clutch. I did notice when they say that only one actually, starting from the left only gives you full. So I don't know where I'm missing something where you can have it set from both ways. I know when I had the Sim Magic running that no matter which paddle you pull, it engages the first portion of the clutch depending on how you set it, and then the second paddle you pull engages full clutch. But here it only works when I pull the left side, and then it completes the clutch when I pull the right side. So something a little bit there, but really it doesn't matter. One of the cool features though is the LED. Immsource have gone to solve the little issue that a lot of people don't have an onboard dash, and having shift lights is just a really cool extra feature that just finishes off these wheel systems. And along that as well, they give you 10 LED lights that are all programmable to various percentages of the RPMs of the car. So you can see here, it starts off at 63. This is one of the ones that I've preset, but this has all been predefined here. And then you have all these other variants that you can even rename one, redo them, and program them yourself, and you can set the total brightness of that. So if I set that to full brightness, you can see it flashing on my face there a little bit from the stream camera, but it's really, really bright in your face. Some quality LEDs built into the wheel here. But they do have some cool options: GT, F1, street cars, so just a regular one, the trucks, drifting, and then you just got various color ones as well. Really cool to have. While you're here as well, they do have the button LEDs, which means you can easily, with the software, this is something that they're probably beating a lot of the other manufacturers to, is with the software you can adjust the color of the buttons. And I'll take a photo and post this up alongside as well. But you can easily just turn button lights on or off. You can change the brightness of various button lights, or you can change the color of a various button light. And you just double click on the color, and then suddenly now my P button is blue, where it was green before. They have a whole bunch of presets as well, which is really cool. Even things along here, these don't work in iRacing. I haven't had these working in iRacing, but I would assume they would work in other games for various conditions, and even you can set the condition. Oh no, it does work. So when I test these on my wheel here, if I press and hold this button, it actually flashes up in the relative colors that they're supposed to be flashing into. So if I want green flag, then everything flashes green on my buttons. If I want a red flag. So I haven't seen these come up on iRacing yet, though. So they're obviously not drawing the data straight from iRacing yet. But they might do just the same way SimHub does when it picks up things if you're running something like a flag display, etc., etc. But they may work in other games, mainly like Assetto Corsa or Assetto Corsa Competizione, stuff like that. But it's still a really cool extra feature that they've thrown in there for the wheels that just finishes off. Just those little finishing touches make it really cool as well. You've got the general things in that last miscellaneous section for the hub buzzer and the USB connection. Onto game setting, and this is really just for loading in presets and loading in telemetry. So you can see here, it's only grabbing telemetry from Assetto Corsa, which would be why that those flag buttons aren't working, but the rev lights are. So it's odd that that's working there. But they tell you the various presets that they recommend here. So if I go to iRacing, they tell you to set it to 8 Newton meters, or 8, and then 17 Newton meters, which I don't think is entirely correct. With the way that force feedback is done now, is that you should be setting this to the torque of the wheelbase itself, and then set this using the auto feature for every track you go on, and away you go. So that's what I followed as well. But they give you all the different setting presets for the various games that they immediately say that this will work with. And there's quite a list here, from R Factor 2, Live for Speed, Euro Truck Simulator. Everyone loves a bit of Euro Truck Simulator. Various of the F1 titles, Project Cars, Race Room, the Dirt Series, Automobilista 2, iRacing, Forza Horizon 4 and 5, and then Assetto Corsa and ACC. Just what they have on the presets. There's other workarounds you can get it to work with, things like the latest Forza Horizon. We all know there's been huge amounts of workarounds available on the internet. So that's the deep dive into in-platform, Immsource's very own in-house software management tool that they use for their ET3 and ET5 wheelbases and the FD1 wheel. That's how it all works. Let's get out on track and let's have some fun. All right, so time for a bit of a road test. Decided to firstly jump into sprint cars. We're in the 360 sprint cars. We're at Fairbury Speedway, and we'll go through the initial setup of the... So I've got everything mapped here. We'll just go through setting up the wheel. We'll just go all the way from one side to the other, yada, 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 all the way across, and then bring it back to 50%. And then turn the wheel until it is vertical or 90 degrees. Because it's got that little bit of spring in there, it takes a little bit of tweaking to do. But we get it into the center. And then you can set up your pedals, you can set up your gearbox. You can see I've already preset all of these anyway. Now I'm going to leave the strength where it was when I ran the Sim Magic, but I'm going to set this to 10 Newton meters. And I'm just going to leave it where it was set to when I think I last ran this actually with the CSL DD. So we'll leave it as is for now, and I've set up all my other buttons as well. We're using the baseline setup, the standard setup that we get with iRacing for the track, and we're going to jump in and have a steer around Fairbury. Fairbury is a pretty tight little track. It's really easy to hit the wall, at least for a very average driver like yours truly. But we'll get out on track, and we'll have a crack at it here. Feels pretty good so far. Oh, right on the wall. Oh, there's a wall. Can feel it coming. Try not to be the stereotypical... Whoa, there's the wall. Alright, so... Try not to be the stereotypical hammer-down road racer on a sprint car, but... I think I'm filling that void quite nicely. So we're going to just stay off the wall for a little bit, but in the sprint car it feels pretty good so far. I mean, people say that the sprint cars probably doesn't have the most to gain from direct drive wheels, but still look at some of the best sprint car drivers around and they'll still prefer to go looking for a DD wheel. I mean, you look at the original World of Outlaws champion Tim Ryan, and nowadays he rocks... I think he rocks the VRS wheelbase actually, the Virtual Racing School's own direct force. Alright, so since I hit the wall, the car's been handling a little bit funny, which is not really a surprise, but it does actually feel quite good to jump in and have a steer, and without really fiddling with any of those settings. So those settings that I showed you earlier with the detail and all that, I haven't touched them. Like they're exactly as they were. Oh, that's going to be the wall. And we're just ripping around the high line on a green track here at February, but I mean, if we try and get the car down low here, gonna spin myself out and park it on the infield tractor tire. There we go. So let's try that again. February's got this hump around the infield that you don't really want to go over it because it just throws the car way out. So see how it's raised up there and the car doesn't want to go. The line really is to go up high, so we'll get back out on track eventually. Oh geez, what are we doing? Alright, back into running up against the fence, I think. But it's good. It feels really good. Found the wall there, and definitely found the wall there, but that's just my driving. That's nothing against the wheel itself. So things actually feel pretty good here with the Immsource, and straight away the FD1 wheel actually lends itself quite nicely. It's working quite well, and as you can see from the replays, it looks pretty cool too. So there you go. There's finding the wall, and then finding the wall again around the top of the racetrack in turns 3 and 4. So first test with the 360 Sprint car feels quite good. We'll go try it out with other things. We'll try it out with the Porsche GT3R, and we might even give it a squirt with a good old bit of Formula 3 just to get a feel for it here in iRacing. So, time to give things a bit of a test run in the Porsche GT3R. This week we're at Phillip Island, so we're going to jump in. We're at Phillip Island for the Virtual Racing School GT Sprint Series. So we're going to jump in and give it a steer on that and see how it feels to get us out here. This might take a couple of laps to get a feel, but I've done a few laps already. It's not like I'm feeling this out for the very first time. I have thrown down a couple of races, including last week with the Porsche GT3R in the Red Bull Ring for the VRS Sprint, those 40-minute long races, and it feels quite good. A couple of notes about the leather steering wheel. It does tend to sweat a little bit, especially if you do have sweaty old hands like I do, so that's why I use the Sparco Hyper Grip gloves. But it does feel really good. You can feel everything you're supposed to. You can feel the rumble strips. When I was doing my initial testing, I was certainly just trying to feel the best option for the consumer to just grab that quick plug-and-play setup. So using the simple force feedback setup and trying to feel out what that's like. And I wasn't playing with the advanced settings at all. So the biggest thing that I played with was that detail setting. And to feel out whether it would really change your experience depending on whether you had it set really low or really high. And I did notice that if you turn it right up, you can feel everything, but then everything feels quite exaggerated and quite jagged. But if you do have it turned down too far, everything smooths out and feels a little bit numb. So there's always that middle ground, depending on what kind of setting you want and what you're looking to feel from the various cars. You may want to change it between various cars, but I found the setting it between 3 and 5, and I have it usually set to 5 most of the time as I run way wide here at Phillip Island, was the way to go for me, having it set for number 5. I could feel everything, get that slight little rumble of the rumble strips as you drop a wheel off the racetrack, and feel all the little inconsistencies in the road. You can see the wheel working around in my hands. But straight up, any of the circuit racing stuff, it does feel really good. Very responsive. I'm not having any kinds of artifacts or any kinds of heat issues. My only gripes are with the wheel itself, the actual wheel material, but I have been advised, thanks to Johnny, that production models should be coming with an Alcantara wheel, in the future, and I do believe even they'll come with a D-shaped wheel rather than the strictly round wheels. But at the end of the day, it still is a 70 PCD by 6-bolt pattern, so if you're looking for something else, some other kind of wheel that you want to fit onto it, as long as it fits between the buttons on the wheelbase, it'll be fine. And you can just undo the buttons undo the bolts on the front here, and away you go. So feels really good. As you can see, my totally lackluster lap of a 131 around Phillip Island. Just me trying to be able to talk and drive at the same time usually slows me down. A couple of issues I had earlier on when I first got it going as well was just finding the right Wi-Fi channel signal to be able to get the wheel to talk to the base on the correct channel, so I wasn't getting interference. I wouldn't necessarily put that down to a problem on Immsource's side. I would put it down to a problem with my home and my home setup, because I do have a lot of wireless devices. As you can see, I'm using the Logitech G733 wireless headset, which does operate on its own 2.4 gigahertz channels. We've got all of our devices inside our house are running on Wi-Fi, so when my partner watches TV, it runs on Wi-Fi. Even though the router is right here in the room, for a period of time I was actually having some Wi-Fi cutouts, even with my old wheel setup and my own SimMagic, where I would actually lose all audio from my headset. I don't know what I ever did to solve it, but I did change channel 1 or 2 times on my router settings, and that solved the problem. But up until that point, I was having issues with audio dropping out at random times during races. That solved itself, but a quick couple of changes to the Wi-Fi channel, really easy to do, by the way, using the in-platform system. I was able to resolve the issue and find the channel that worked best for me. What worked best for me was channel number 8. And since then, I haven't had any issues. But before that, I was just having minor issues like the gears not quite shifting when I wanted them to. And it would seem like the wheel would disconnect randomly when I was trying to set up my controls and buttons going into a new car. But once I set it to channel 8, it wasn't so much of an issue. Oh, and then we've lost it. So here's me overcooking it at Phillip Island in the Porsche GT3R, but overall, the wheel feels really good after a little bit of fine-tuning with the strength and the detail settings. I'm really happy with how it's felt, and I've used it for a couple of weeks now in official races, and all feels really good. Let's check out the spin. And in too deep, and round we go. That's the way to do it. Not bad overall. So for the last road test of the Immsource ET3 and FD1 wheel, what better place to go than to the #1 car that I still drive on iRacing, and that is the Dallara F3. Now, while the wheel shape itself might not be the most suitable to open wheel racing, of course, I am used to using the old SimMagic Alpha and the GT4C wheel combo for this kind of racing, and it is a little bit smaller and only marginally smaller in diameter. This is 320mm, whereas the GT4C wheel is 300mm. If you were to chop the top and bottom off, you wouldn't notice a difference, so it shouldn't be too different to jump in an F3 and go racing. So this week, F3s are at Mount Panorama, probably the most challenging circuit in all of iRacing's on-road system. So let's give it a go, and let's see how it shakes out. So it's interesting to note here that the wheel straight away feels really good, and I wouldn't really expect anything else from this. Like, I haven't driven the F3 with the Immsource yet. This is my first drive of the F3 car with this wheel, but straight away, after a quick adjustment to my force feedback settings in the graphics adjustments panel on my black box, it feels really good. You can see I just made another adjustment there. This is the F3 fix setup, so I'm not trying to do anything fancy here. Just trying to cut some laps on what is a very tough track that's going to be very demanding for anyone who uses it. I can feel every bump that I'm expecting to feel, with quite a bit of ferocity as well, so it's all certainly there. There's no rattles, there's no clunks. There's nothing coming from the wheelbase telling me that, you know, it's hurting or I'm in trouble or anything like that, but I can just feel everything, and I'm quite impressed with that. I feel like I'm even feeling detail that I probably wouldn't be feeling with the Sim Magic, and the big test is going to be when I give this back to Johnny and I go back to the Sim Magic unit as I try and navigate my way through the tight stuff. When I go back to the Sim Magic, it's going to be interesting to see whether I do notice any severe loss of fidelity or a loss of feeling. And that could just be down to settings. It could just be the fact that Immsource have really hit the nail on the head with the preset settings that they said, this is what we want you to run, and you should run this, and it will be good, because this feels really good. Like, I'm Australian, so we've all done a million laps around Mount Panorama, but I actually just downloaded the track. Like, I've not driven Mount Panorama on iRacing much before, and it probably shows, because I'm getting around quite slowly. But the feel that I'm getting from everything and getting around the circuit feels quite good. Now, I'm not a phenomenal driver. I'm average at best, you know. And I am even doing this in an open practice session for the F3 Fix series, but everything feels really good. I'm quite pleased with it. I can feel whenever the car's going over, all the little undulations in the road as we head up the hill again and try and get the F3 airborne whenever we can. It's impressive. And that's what's going to be important here, because for a new manufacturer to break into the market, almost binned it. Would have been a crap video if I stuffed it in the wall, wouldn't it? For a new manufacturer to break into the market, it's really important that the first product that they release to the public is the best that they can do. Because if they release something that, yeah, it's promising, but, you know, its price point versus its quality doesn't really deliver what people are expecting, or doesn't really make people jump up out of their seats, then they're not going to win, are they? Because if you can't give the public an incentive to step away from what they used to with the Fanatec's and the Simu Cubes, and, you know, the uprising of the OSW and the VRSs and even the Sim Magic units, because they've been in the market for a little bit now, you've got to expect that they're going to be there in people's minds. You're trying to draw them away to something else. You need that wow factor. You need something that's going to make someone go, you know what? Yeah, okay, my friends don't have them and nobody I know has them, but I'm going to give these Immsource guys a go. I'm going to go throw a couple of grand of my hard-earned money at their product, because I think and I have the confidence that it's going to do me really well. And that's the fight that Immsource are going to have on their hands right now. That they've entered a market which is pretty well covered already. Like, and they're coming in. So unless their prices are absolutely unbeatable, and I mean like cheaper than Sim Magic, cheaper than Fanatec, cheaper than everything else for a comparable system, they're going to need something else. And having an easy to use software package that you can literally just plug and play, like bolting this up to my rig was 4 bolts onto my front mount, a quick plug of the USB cable into my PC, and then I ran the power lead, and away we go. Making it as easy as possible for people to get into it, buy their product and get them on their sim rigs. That's going to have to be their goal, because unless they're delivering a whole new experience of force feedback, which really they're not, they're delivering the same quality that we're expecting from the rest of the industry, it has to be something that they need to be able to get a leg up over the rest of the competition. Whoa! Caught it! I caught it!
Mind these track limits, please, Chris.
Almost didn't catch it then, and we're going to go binning it here. Saved it! That's what happens when you try and talk and drive an F3 around Mount Panorama. The beauty there is I felt everything. I felt that I was running off, and I could feel all the bumps and curves, and I was able to catch it. So that was the biggest thing that surprised me when I came from the belt drive wheel that I had. I had the old Club Sport V2.5. When I made the switch from that to the Alpha Mini, I could immediately feel more of the car, and I could catch the slides more. And even without using third-party force feedback programs, I I felt like I could drive better. And that's what we want. As the public in the sim racing community, we want to be able to feel like we're doing better. We want to feel more of the car. We want to feel more immersed into our races. We want to feel like we're going faster. Even if we're not actually going faster, that's what we want. And if you can deliver that as a new company to the industry, then you're going to do well. I think Immsource have got a way to go with little things, but for their first offering, and keep in mind this is all pre-production prototypes or pre-production models that we've been given to review here, I think they've done pretty well for themselves. So the biggest thing on anyone's mind when they're talking about a new wheelbase is the build quality any good? Is it good value for money? And are they going to be actual contenders in the market? There's always uncertainty around a brand new manufacturer. We've had the same with SimMagic when they came out to the market. And everyone just has to ask the question. It's natural to ask whether the product we're going to be buying is any good for the amount of money we're throwing down. My first impressions of the Immsource product was it was really good. It looks fine. The build quality is great. It's not quite to the same level that I have seen from SimMagic, but I feel like that will improve because I was only really reviewing a pre-production version with some changes to be made before they release their final production models, little tweaks to be done here and there. I think the build quality is right up on par with where they're trying to put themselves in the market. The driving feel was great, the ease of setup, the ease of mounting, it was all there. So all the factors are there to make it a really great product, and time will just tell whether people really embrace this Immsource and take them into the future as a reliable source of sim racing equipment with their intent to build a whole ecosystem around what they've already built up. So as I said, the build quality was great, not quite on the level of what I've seen from some of the SimMagic products, but it wasn't very far off either. Not noticeably poor or anything like that. The quick release and the feel of the whole system was very sturdy, it was nice and strong. The downside with the quick release is that even though it is a D1 style with the 10 ball D10s on the ring, it wasn't the same size as what I've experienced on the SimMagic. So while it may look very similar, if you went to go buy yourself a D1 quick release, you might come up with problems if you're trying to fit an alternative wheel to the base, where it's not really going to match up. So time will tell whether that's an issue. I experienced it. I tried straight away to try and fit a SimMagic wheel to the Immsource, and the other way around, the Immsource to my SimMagic base, and the quick releases weren't the same sizes, so they weren't going to fit up. If that's the case, then you need to buy yourself an original Immsource quick release to be able to fit an aftermarket wheel. It might be somewhat limiting for people who want to have a whole bunch of different wheels for NASCAR or drifting, or even then have themselves a Formula wheel, etc. Something to keep an eye on in the future, but I don't see it as the hugest problem because most people are straight away looking for an out-of-the-box solution that has a wheelbase and wheel they can bolt onto their rig, and away they go. It's only really the really higher level of users that want to go make their own wheels and get involved with aftermarket wheels, etc. The wheel buttons, paddles, rev lights, and everything are really good features on the FD1 wheel. High quality, really good, same feeling quality as what I've experienced every day when I use my SimMagic. A really added bonus was having those rev lights and having the dual clutch paddles on a GT wheel. When you have the things like the Fanatec and the SimMagic GT1D and GT1R wheels, you don't have the dual clutch paddles. You only get them when you fit them to the GT4C, or you can do them as an aftermarket option for an additional cost. Having them right there on the FD1 was really cool, and I was really happy with that. The downsides of that was the leather wheel really isn't my style. I would rather prefer either a Formula wheel, or if I have to go to a round wheel, a GT style flat bottom Alcantara or suede wheel, and it would be much nicer. But I've been advised that the production versions of the Immsource FD1 will actually be a GT style Alcantara suede flat bottom GT style wheel, not the round leather one like what I tested on the home rig. So it's a big update from Immsource before they release their production versions, and I'm excited to see that come through when we get them in. As far as software concerns, there's a lot of people who really harp on about how the software behaves and how much of an influence it has on your sim racing experience. The in-platform software was really, really easy to use. Very impressed with actually how they've thought about the layout of the software, where you can find all the features, all the buttons, all the extra features they've packed into in-platform was really thoughtful, and I think it's going to make the experience really good for people who are a bit newer to sim racing, who don't really want to spend the time filtering through back-end files and trying to find everything and fine-tuning all those little force feedback elements, to have the quick settings there in the simple mode, just to almost plug and play, and off you go racing. Really thoughtful from Immsource, and it's great that they have that, because it makes it so much easier just to bolt the wheel onto your system and get going, not having to worry about another element that you need to fine-tune in amongst the plethora of elements that are built into our rigs that always need fine-tuning. The downside of the software is during my testing, I did find it it had the tendency to crash a little bit, mainly when I was actually trying to film the software elements using Streamlabs OBS. So a couple of stability things on Immsource's side, but really wasn't too big of an issue. Just rebooted in platform, it reloaded the light colors, and off we go. Another big thing that would catch a lot of people's eye on the ET3 wheelbase, even the ET5 for that matter, was the expandable USB ports. I didn't touch too much on it throughout the build and throughout this this review video so far, but it's a really cool idea to have the 6 extra USB ports you can plug all these peripherals into, so you don't have to run extra long cables back to your PC and have everything tied up back there. It's a great idea. However, during the pre-production prototype model that I tested here, they didn't work. So I have reached out to Immsource, and we've spoken to their engineers, and they do advise us that they're working on getting the drivers updated to make sure that they do work for the production models, but I can't really give too much of a thought and an update on them working and lag or anything that comes with plugging everything to one USB hub on your wheel and then running the one cable back to the PC. So time will tell, and we should have an update coming after this video once we get the production models out there. But it's a great idea. As long as it comes through in practice, we'll let you know in the near future when we get the production models going. Is it value for money though? Well, think about it here. The ET3 with the FD1 wheel pricing comes in at around about 1,850 Australian dollars with the current pricing, which puts it bang on par with the SimMagic Alpha Mini and the GT1 wheels. They're up around $1,800, $1,900 now, even more when you're going to want to go for the GT4C wheel. So, as far as their point in the market, they're competing directly in that same space of the SimMagic Alpha Mini, and even then trying to justify themselves up against well-proven competitors like the Fanatec CSL-DD and any of the wheels that go along with that in a bundle. But for the similar pricing as the SimMagic, you do get some extra features. Of course, you get the dual paddle clutch built into the wheel, you get rev lights on the wheelbase, the USB expansion ports on the back, we've already touched on them, I know, and the in-platform software is probably the easiest to use software out of any of the wheel management softwares that I've used so far. From Simicube to Fanatec to the SimMagic software, the in-platform has been the simplest plug-and-play solution with the best overall feel to get going that I've experienced so far, with the best amount of features and some really cool features that I wish they would implement in other softwares like SimMagic. For example, the dual clutch preset feature. If I can just have some saved presets for my dual clutches, so when I go between certain cars I can set that clutch to get those perfect launches, especially in iRacing, I'd be absolutely dreaming. Don't have that in my SimMagic software, but I could have that if I went to full-time using the Immsource system. So some really cool features there for the very similar price point in the market. I think that is what's going to be that little straw that breaks the camel's back for Immsource and get them into the market right at the moment. So that's my total wrap-up. Would I buy it? Absolutely. For the price point and what they're offering, Immsource coming straight into the market with a new product, it is really exciting to see out here. And from Racecraft Simulations, we will be stocking the Immsource units. Stock is due to come in the end of February 2022. As far as mounting, I did express some concerns with the mounting software, mounting methods onto your rig being only a front mount available and not having a very long axle sticking out from the wheelbase. Well, we do have coming with the Immsource units, we do have 75mm and 100mm extensions to go on the axles, plus top mounting brackets coming with that shipment as well. So they'll bolt onto the front of the wheelbase. They'll have the arms that come down that allow you to bolt it to a top mount system on your rig if you so need. So, get out there, get in touch with Johnny. You can even try them out at Racecraft Simulations. They're on the machines right now. You can come in and have a feel for yourself. But thank you so much for watching this review video for the Immsource ET3 and FD1 wheel. I hope to see you soon from Racecraft Simulations.